Welcome, listeners, to another deep dive on vibrations and manifestations. I'm Alicia.
And I'm Jared. Hello, Alicia, and welcome, everyone.
Hi, Jared. And I have to say, just settling in today, this one feels different.
Yeah, it really does. Usually we are focusing on things like optimization or, personal growth.
Right, the additive stuff.
Exactly. The additive stuff, like how do I add this new skill to my daily routine?
Yeah.
But today feels entirely restorative.
Maybe even urgent, honestly.
Urgent is the word. It feels less like we are taking vitamins and more like we're doing surgery.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So how is your morning going, by the way?
Well,
You've got the tea, you've got the notebook. Are you ready for this kind of wait today?
I am. I really am. I've got my tea jasmine green today, just for the calm, and I am fully wearing my cozy slippers.
Nice.
I needed to physically ground myself, because I think I actually need this topic today just as much as anyone listening.
I feel that.
I was actually reflecting this morning on that specific creative process we talk about sometimes. The liminal space.
Oh, right. The messy middle.
Yeah, that exact phase in a project where it is not quite wrong, but it is definitely not right yet.
It feels incredibly static, like you were just wading through thick mud.
It does. And that is the danger zone, right? When something is clearly broken, it is actually pretty easy. You just fix it.
Yeah, it's binary. Broken or fixed.
But when it is almost right, that is where you get completely trapped in the nuance. You can't move forward, but you can't quite quit either.
It is a very specific type of purgatory.
It really is. It's the pause that counts.
Yeah.
And it takes so much patience to sit in that tension without forcing a premature conclusion.
Because we want to rush to the finish line, right? Just to stop that uncomfortable feeling of uncertainty.
Exactly. We hate the ambiguity.
Yeah.
And that feeling, that actual tightness in your chest where you just want to resolve the tension, that is exactly the terrain we are mapping today. Because if we cannot sit in that tension with a creative project, how in the world are we supposed to sit in it with a human being who fundamentally disagrees with us?
Man, that is the question. Because last time, we talked a lot about alignment. We talked about shared power.
We did.
And let's just be completely real for a second. Shared stewardship. Building a life or a community with someone, that is on easy mode when everyone agrees.
Oh, 100%.
If we see the world the exact same way, if we hold all the same values, building together is just logistics.
It's just scheduling at that point.
Yeah, to the Gantt chart.
Yeah.
But today, we are looking at the expert level. We are asking the hard question, what happens when that alignment fractures?
What happens when the people we love, or the people we simply have to share a space with, see the world so differently that it feels dangerous?
And I want to be really clear for you listening right now.
Yeah.
We aren't just talking about the old cliche of agreeing to disagree.
Right, because that doesn't hold water.
It doesn't. Not when the stakes feel high. We are talking about that somatic bodily response.
The tight chest.
The tight chest, the throat closing up, the defensive thought loops that keep you awake at 2 in the morning.
Yeah, the feeling that a difference of opinion is actually a predator standing in the room with you.
It feels existential.
That is the exact word that kept coming up for me as we were preparing for this deep dive. Existential.
We treat conflict like it is a literal survival threat.
But the perspective we are stepping into today is that conflict is not a failure. It is actually just data.
Conflict is inevitable. Fragmentation is optional.
That is the thesis right there.
That is the mission for today's deep dive.
Yeah.
We are going to figure out how we can remain connected across deep disagreement without betraying our core values and without completely blowing out our nervous systems.
It is about staying in a relationship when it would be so much easier to just walk away.
And to really understand how to do that, I think we need to look backward before we look forward.
I agree. Because we have this very modern idea that unity means sameness.
Right. If we are unified, we must think alike.
Exactly. But history tells a very, very different story.
It does. To understand this, we need to look at a system that was designed specifically to handle massive structural fracture. We are going back to Philadelphia.
Let's go.
It is May 1787, the Constitutional Convention.
And before we get into the politics or the dry historical facts, I want to set the sensory stage here, because context always dictates behavior.
Absolutely. You can't separate the physical environment from the emotional one.
You really can't. You cannot understand the decisions made in that room if you do not understand what they were physically feeling. It was arguably the hottest summer in Philadelphia's history.
And we are not talking about modern heat where you just crank up the AC.
No, this is oppressive East Coast humidity, that sticky, heavy heat that just sits right on your skin and makes it hard to breathe.
And the city itself, Philadelphia, in the late 18th century, it smelled.
It smelled terrible, like horse manure, stagnant river water, and wood smoke. It was a very visceral environment.
Now, consider what these guys are wearing. They are not walking in wearing linen shorts and T-shirts.
No, they're in full wool coats.
Wool coats, heavy vests, cravats wrapped tightly around their necks, powdered wigs.
They are physically miserable every single second of the day.
And they are walking into the Pennsylvania State House, where all the windows have been nailed shut.
Nailed shut. I mean, just imagine the claustrophobia. And why did they do that?
Secrecy. They had all sworn this incredibly strict oath that absolutely nothing said in that room would leave that room until the entire work was finished.
They were terrified of leaks.
Exactly. They didn't want the press or the general public to know just how close they were to total failure.
So you have 55 men locked in a room that is essentially a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
Literally and metaphorically.
Breathing each other's hot, stale air.
That is a perfect recipe for high cortisol. You have exhaustion, severe dehydration, and heat stress long before the first debate even starts.
So when you, as a listener, picture this convention, please do not picture calm marble statues making highly rational decisions.
Right, no glowing halos of patriotism.
Picture sweaty, agitated, deeply exhausted human beings who are at their absolute wit's end.
And the room was filled with suspicion. We have to remember that the young nation was failing at that moment under the Articles of Confederation.
It was falling apart. You had vicious currency disputes between the states. New York was heavily taxing goods coming in from New Jersey.
Trade wars happening right across state lines.
The entire democratic experiment was teetering on the edge of a cliff.
It felt like it was about to implode at any second. And then you add the structural conflicts inside the room.
Yeah. The large states like Virginia and Pennsylvania, they wanted power based purely on population.
Which, if you are a large state, makes perfect logical sense. More people should equal more voice. That feels like true democracy to them.
But the small states, like Delaware and New Jersey, they looked at that and saw a literal death sentence.
Because if power is based entirely on population, they become completely irrelevant overnight.
They just become vassal states taking orders from Virginia. So what you have here is a massive collision of two highly valid survival needs.
It wasn't just a polite disagreement on trade policy. It was a disagreement on survival.
And hovering over all of this, darkening the entire room, is the deepest wound of American history: slavery.
You have southern states demanding that enslaved people count for political power so they can dominate the House of Representatives.
And not for tax purposes, and certainly not for freedom.
And you have northern delegates pointing out the massive, glaring moral contradiction of that demand.
It got intensely personal very fast. This was not a refined debate club.
There were actual threats of walking out almost daily.
There was a very real, tangible belief that the United States would simply cease to exist by the end of that summer.
There were days where they just sat in the stifling heat in total silence because the deadlock was so profound they literally didn't know what to say.
So how did they solve it? This is the crucial takeaway for our deep dive today regarding our own relationships.
They did not solve it by agreeing.
No. There was absolutely no moment where everyone held hands and sang. They didn't suddenly align on a beautiful, unified worldview.
Nobody looked across the room and said, you know what? You are completely right. I see it your way now.
What they did was build a structure of containment.
Containment. Let's really explain that distinction for everyone listening. The difference between agreement and containment.
Agreement implies that we think the exact same thing. It implies our internal worlds match perfectly.
Right.
Containment implies that we have successfully built a vessel strong enough to hold the fact that we think very different things.
So the great compromise they reached created two houses. The House of Representatives for the large states based on population, and the Senate for the small states with equal representation.
Neither side got exactly what they wanted, but both sides got a structural way to survive.
And then the 3/5 compromise, which is genuinely painful to even talk about today.
It is. It is morally repugnant. It counted an enslaved human being as 3/5 of a person for the sake of political representation.
We never want to gloss over the horror of that reality.
Absolutely not. But looking at it through the cold, analytical lens of systems and structures, it was a mechanism of containment.
It was the only mathematical formula that kept the South in the room.
Because if they hadn't built that specific container, the South walks out. The Union dissolves immediately. And instead of one nation, we probably end up with 3 or 4 warring nations sharing this continent.
That is such a hard truth to swallow. Because it wasn't justice, it was just a container.
Precisely. And that is the core insight here. Highly durable systems are rarely, if ever, built on unanimous belief.
They are built on the discipline of constructing a container strong enough to hold the disagreement without shattering.
Agreement did not hold that hot room together. Containment did.
And honestly, I think applying that to our own lives is a massive relief.
How so?
Because we put so much immense pressure on our personal relationships, our families, our partners, our close friends, we expect total agreement.
We really do. We think if we do not agree on this specific political issue or this approach to parenting, then the entire relationship is fundamentally broken.
Yes. But the lesson from Philadelphia is so clear. The relationship isn't broken just because the agreement is broken.
The relationship is broken only if the container cracks.
That distinction, agreement versus containment, it literally changes everything. We often tell ourselves, if I can't agree with you, I can't be in a relationship with you.
But history shows us, over and over, that you can build incredibly durable things without total agreement, provided you have the capacity to hold the tension.
And that brings this whole concept down to the deeply personal level, because most of us are not locked in a room writing national constitutions.
No, thankfully.
But we are all managing our families, and families are their own little unstable nations sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. They have their own trade wars and border disputes.
They really do.
Because while the fate of a nation is high stakes, the fate of a family can feel just as heavy on our hearts.
It really can. And I know you have a personal story about this, about a time when the political and the personal collided in a very real way. And I think this story really illustrates what happens when we stop focusing on the abstract arguments and just get hit with reality.
Yeah. This is very close to my heart. For years, my family had this quiet, simmering tension. I think a lot of our listeners will recognize this dynamic immediately. It wasn't shouting matches at dinner necessarily. We're polite people. It was just a subtle edge, a cooling off. Certain holidays came with warning labels, don't bring up the news, don't talk about that policy. If so-and-so starts drinking, just change the subject.
The classic walk on eggshells vibe.
Exactly. And underneath all that silence, there was this story running in all of our heads. I was doing it too. I'd look at a family member and think, I don't recognize that version of you. How can you possibly believe that? What kind of person are you if you vote that way? It felt like we were slowly becoming strangers. It felt existential. I remember thinking, maybe we just don't have anything in common anymore.
Like the relationship itself was just eroding away.
Yes. And then everything changed in a single morning. It was about a month before my grandmother's 80th birthday. We were planning this huge reunion, people flying in from all over the country. My grandmother was so excited, but also really nervous because she knew the tension in the family. She just wanted everyone to be together. She was the glue.
She just wanted peace.
She wanted peace. But one morning she woke up and she went to the kitchen to get a glass of water. And her hand just wouldn't cooperate. The glass slipped and shattered all over the floor. She tried to pick it up and her arm felt heavy, like it belonged to someone else. She tried to call out to my grandfather, and her words were thick and slurred. A massive stroke. Plus AFib. My grandfather called 911, the ambulance came, and suddenly the house that was preparing for balloons and cake was filled with paramedics in complete urgency. They stabilized her enough to airlift her to a specialized heart hospital in Phoenix and a helicopter ride. That changes everything. That is the sound of, we might actually lose her.
The stakes shift instantly. It's no longer about who is coming to the party. It's about whether there will even be a party.
Instantly. My uncle, who was often on the quote-unquote other side of the political tension for my mom, he was there. He called my mother, and I watched her take that call. There's a very specific silence that happens when mortality enters the room. It's not loud. It's hollow. We didn't know if she was going to live or die.
And what happened to the tension, all the political arguments?
They completely evaporated. In that hospital room, with the machines humming and that sterile smell of antiseptic, nobody cared about the election. Nobody cared about the policy disagreements. The only thought in that room was, please let her live. My mom and her brother were just siblings again. The political tension dissolved because it became totally irrelevant in the face of real fragility.
That is such a powerful realization. But let me ask you this. Did they actually change their minds? Did your uncle suddenly agree with your mom's politics because your grandmother was sick?
No, not at all. And that is the most important part. She lived 3 more years, thankfully. And those 3 years were a massive gift. But the disagreements didn't vanish. We didn't suddenly agree on taxes or foreign policy. But the disagreements softened. They lost their sting. Because once you stood together wondering if your mother's going to die, it is very, very hard to convince yourself that an ideological difference is an extinction-level event for the relationship. Because the crisis didn't magically solve the conflict. It just revealed that the bond, the love, the shared humanity was so much deeper than the fracture.
That is the lesson. We so often escalate our daily disagreements to the absolute level of extinction or survival.
We act as if losing an argument about a specific social policy means we are going to literally perish.
But real fragility confronting real mortality, it clarifies what is actually existential.
The disagreement didn't vanish, but it softened. Because they realized in their bones that the relationship was vastly more important than being right.
It suggests that we are walking around every day chronically misdiagnosing the level of threat in our life.
We are constantly treating a difference of opinion like it is a saber-toothed tiger standing in our kitchen.
Which perfectly leads us directly into the core teaching of our time today. The 3 layers of conflict.
Because if we want to actually navigate this stuff without fragmenting, we have to know where we are on the map.
And most of us are completely lost.
So true. So let's unpack these layers, because if we can name them, we can tame them. Layer 1 is surface conflict.
This is the topsoil. This is the realm of policy, daily strategy, preferences, and methods.
I think we should spend our budget on X, or I think the holiday schedule should look like Y.
It is purely logistical. It is an argument about how we do things.
And this is exactly where we usually think we are arguing. We think we are just debating the schedule. But usually, we aren't. We quickly slide deeper into Layer 2, identity conflict.
This is where it starts to get really sticky, because Layer 2 isn't about what we do, it is about who we are.
What kind of people are we? What do we stand for as a family or a society?
And if you disagree with me at Layer 2, it doesn't just feel like a logistical bump. It feels like you are actively invalidating my personhood.
You are questioning my character.
Exactly. And if we don't catch it there, we plunge straight into Layer 3. Existential threat.
The bottom of the well.
The absolute bottom. This is where your nervous system is literally screaming at you. The narrative becomes, if you win this argument, I disappear.
Your worldview annihilates my ability to survive.
The catastrophic error we make, and this is exactly where the fragmentation happens, is that we constantly mistake Layer 1 for Layer 3.
We treat a disagreement about tax policy or where to spend Thanksgiving as if it is an existential threat to our physical survival.
And when we do that, unregulated identity conflict entirely collapses our ability to be stewards of our relationships.
Because you cannot responsibly steward a relationship or a team or a community if your body is constantly reacting as if you are about to be annihilated.
You just can't. The biology won't allow it.
So what actually drives that massive escalation? Why do we jump so quickly from, I disagree with your vacation plan, to, you are an evil person who is trying to destroy my happiness?
Why is the human brain so eager to make that massive leap?
Right. What is the mechanism?
There is a hidden accelerator at work here, and it is called projection.
Projection. Let's really double-click on that concept.
Right.
Because it is a word that gets tossed around in pop psychology constantly.
Oh, all the time. You're projecting. Stop projecting.
But in a deeply clinical, mechanical sense, what is projection actually doing inside of us?
Put simply, projection is the mind's brilliant, unconscious way of exporting internal discomfort to an external source.
It is an exhaust pipe for the ego.
An exhaust pipe. I love that image. It really is.
Think about it. If I am feeling internal instability, let's say I am deeply worried about the future, or I feel profoundly insecure about a choice I made, or I am carrying a lot of shame.
That feeling is incredibly heavy.
It is metabolically expensive for the body to hold on to that kind of shame or fear.
So the brain aggressively looks for a place to dump it.
It wants efficiency. It wants to offload the weight.
Exactly. Instead of sitting quietly with the thought, wow, I feel really destabilized and insecure right now, the mind flips a hidden switch and says, you are dangerous.
Instead of acknowledging, I feel unsure of myself, the mind projects outward and says, you are corrupt and wrong.
And we have to realize, this is completely protective. It is not necessarily malicious.
It is entirely a defense mechanism. It forcefully moves the uncomfortable emotion outside of the self so we do not have to process it.
But the result of doing that is utterly catastrophic for human connection.
Because once I have successfully projected my internal fear onto you, you cease to be a complex human being who just happens to have a different view.
You become a flat symbol of my potential destruction.
I am no longer having a conversation with you. I am fighting a terrifying ghost that I created and draped over you.
And that dynamic instantly triggers the hardware, the amygdala.
The brain's threat detection center. This is where the actual biology kicks in and takes the wheel.
Because when our deeply held values are challenged, the primitive part of the brain does not distinguish between this person votes differently than me and there is a literal bear charging at me in the cave.
Wait, the biological response is identical.
It is nearly identical. Cortisol floods your system, adrenaline dramatically spikes,
Your heart rate shoots up.
and your vision literally narrows. It is called tunnel vision. Your eyes adapt to focus exclusively on the threat. Your digestion completely slows down to conserve energy for a physical fight.
And most importantly for our deep dive today, your capacity for empathy, which lives up in the prefrontal cortex, it entirely shuts down.
Because empathy is an expensive luxury calorie.
You do not need to empathize with a bear, you need to run, or you need to fight for your life.
So when we are triggered into that state by a political or personal disagreement, we literally cannot hear the other person.
It is not that we are just being stubborn or willfully ignorant.
No, we are physiologically incapacitated from experiencing connection.
And this whole process cascades outward, doesn't it? Because leadership tone sets the emotional model for the whole group.
It absolutely cascades. If leaders, whether that is someone in high political office or just a parent at the head of a dinner table, if they escalate into threat mode, everyone else in the system mirrors that emotional posture.
We adopt the nervous system state of the most activated person in the room.
It acts exactly like an immune system. And I really love this metaphor we explored for today.
Let's lay it out.
A healthy biological immune system is brilliant. It distinguishes harmful invaders, but it does not attack everything it sees.
It knows the nuanced difference between a deadly virus and a harmless pollen grain.
Or a virus and the body's own liver cells. It only attacks what is actually trying to kill it.
But an autoimmune system.
An autoimmune system gets deeply confused. It loses the ability to distinguish. It identifies the body's own healthy tissue as a mortal threat and brutally attacks it.
That is such a haunting, accurate image. Social autoimmunity.
That is exactly what fragmentation is. Social autoimmunity. We are aggressively attacking our own connections, our own body politic, our own extended families.
We are actively identifying the other, who is actually an integral part of us, as a virus that must be completely destroyed.
We are attacking ourselves in a desperate, confused attempt to protect ourselves.
So if that is the core problem, if we are biologically and psychologically wired for this kind of defensive projection and autoimmune response, what is the actual solution?
We talked earlier about widening the container.
What does that actually mean in practice?
Widening the container means consciously increasing your emotional and relational capacity to hold tension without breaking the connection.
It does not mean agreeing.
No.
It does not mean submitting or rolling over.
It means you simply get bigger. You expand your internal real estate.
The core reframe we want you to take away today is this. I can hold my values without breaking the bond.
I can hold my values without breaking the bond. That is such a profound shift. It is the true spirituality of stewardship.
Because you are not responsible for the other person's tone or their reaction. You are only responsible for what you embody in the space.
If the system starts to fragment, you widen. You consciously become the larger space where the tension can exist safely without exploding.
Let's get really practical here. We love giving you tools on this deep dive. We need to move from the high theory down into the nervous system.
Because it is one thing to sit here with our calming tea and say, widen the container.
It is an entirely different thing to do it when your relative is aggressively shouting at you across the Thanksgiving turkey.
Right. The practical application is what we call contain, don't collapse.
And there are 4 clear steps to this. Step 1 is regulate.
You have to breathe, ground your feet, manually drop your shoulders away from your ears.
You cannot think clearly when your amygdala is firing. You have to actively, manually override your own biological system before you open your mouth.
Step 2 is separate issue from identity. You have to distinguish the specific policy or action from the person's fundamental personhood.
Step 3 is clarify values. Ask yourself, what is the underlying shared driver here? Is it a need for safety? A need for fairness?
Usually both parties actually want something very good. They just wildly disagree on the method of how to get there.
And step 4 is choose connection. Actively prioritizing the long-term bond over getting the short-term win.
I think we really need to model this because it is incredibly easy to just say separate issue from identity, but doing it in real time is so hard.
Let's role-play a scenario right now, and let's not do the perfectly polished, enlightened version.
Yeah, let's do the messy version first. The version where we completely fail, so everyone can feel what that fragmentation actually sounds like.
Okay, I am totally game. Let's pick something deeply domestic. Not a massive political issue, but something mundane that consistently creates serious friction.
How about managing a Saturday schedule?
Oh, perfect. The classic weekend battle.
Right.
Okay, I will play the role of the person who desperately wants a strict, highly productive schedule. I want to feel safe and completely on top of things before Monday hits.
So your driving value is productivity.
Yes. My value is productivity equals safety.
And I will play the role of the person who desperately wants flow and rest. I want to feel aligned and recharged. My driving value is peace.
Okay, setting the scene for you listening. It is Saturday morning, let's say 10 a.m. I have been up since 7. I have already made the list. I am already feeling the crushing pressure of the coming work week.
And I am still in my pajamas.
Right. I walk into the living room, and you are just sitting there, drinking coffee, staring out the window.
I'm vibing. I am perfectly happy.
And I look at you, and I instantly feel that familiar tightness in my chest, that rising panic, and I just blurt out, "We haven't started anything yet. We are wasting the entire day. You're just drifting around while I stress out. We really need to focus."
Oof. Okay. Immediate internal reaction on my end. My stomach completely drops. I feel intensely judged. I feel like you're essentially calling me lazy and useless.
The amygdala is firing.
It is fully firing. And so I immediately snap back to defend myself. You are so unbelievably controlling. You never let us just be. Why does absolutely everything have to be a rigid military operation with you?
Okay, let's freeze right there. Let's look at that wreckage on the floor.
That is total fragmentation. And it happened in about 2 seconds.
I completely attacked your identity.
Yeah.
I didn't just complain about the time. I labeled you as drifting and wasted.
You made it about who I am.
I didn't say, I am really worried about getting the chores done. I effectively said, you are the problem.
And I responded by immediately attacking your identity. I called you controlling and military. I turned you into the villain who actively hates fun and peace.
And now we are fully locked in a layer 3 fight.
It feels existential.
I feel like my fundamental need for safety and structure is being actively destroyed by your laziness. And you feel like your fundamental need for rest and autonomy is being destroyed by my rigidity.
We are suddenly enemies living in the same house.
Okay, let's rewind the tape. Let's try to actively apply step 2, regulation and separation.
Okay. Reset. Same exact scenario. 10 a.m. I am in my pajamas. You walk in. You feel the panic rising.
Okay, I am pausing. I feel the intense urge to snap and say, you're wasting time. Right. But I physically stop. I take a deep breath. I notice my chest is incredibly tight.
And what do you tell yourself in that pause?
I actively admit to myself, this is my anxiety. This is not the other person maliciously doing something to me. This is me feeling unprepared and terrified of Monday morning.
That is the crucial pivot right there.
So instead of throwing an accusation across the room, I own the feeling. I say, hey, okay, I just need to say, I am feeling my chest tighten up right now because I'm looking at the clock and my schedule is totally blown. That is my anxiety kicking in. It is not about you, but I'm feeling overwhelmed.
Okay. Now, hearing that version, I do not feel attacked at all.
But you probably still feel a little defensive.
I do, because I really don't want to get off the couch yet. I want to protect my peace, so I have to regulate myself too before I respond.
What's your internal monologue?
I have to consciously say to myself, he is not trying to control my life right now. He is just desperately trying to regulate his own stress about the upcoming week.
Right. That is the separation of issue from identity.
So I say back, I hear that you are really stressed about the list, but when you come into the room with that frantic energy, I feel like you don't value my need for rest at all. I really need this morning to be slow so I can function next week.
And because I am regulated, I can actually hear that. So I answer, I totally get that. I really don't want to steal your rest. But if we don't get these 3 specific things done by noon, I am going to feel completely underwater on Monday. I need some structure today to feel safe.
And I need some unstructured time today to feel safe.
Look at that. See? Now we are actively negotiating our conflicting needs.
We are 2 allies sitting side by side facing a shared problem, which is the schedule. rather than two enemies facing off against each other.
And here is where it gets really interesting for me, analytically speaking. By regulating myself in that pause, by admitting out loud that it was my anxiety driving the bus, I completely regained my agency.
Say more about that.
When I am triggered, I am basically a robot. I am just running a defensive script. I am reacting blindly. But when I pause and regulate, I can actually steer the interaction.
That is what we call agency steers.
Exactly. Agency steers. I steered that conversation toward a mutual solution rather than just instinctively crashing it into a massive argument.
And looking at it from my side, connecting this tiny domestic example to the much bigger picture, it takes so much more strength to hold space for your need for structure and my opposing need for rest than it does to just yell and storm out of the room.
It really does. Storming off is easy.
That capacity to hold both of those completely opposing needs in your hands at the exact same time without dropping either of them, that is containment.
Containment is strength.
Containment is strength. It is not giving in. It is not being a doormat. It is having a container big enough to hold the whole complex picture.
It is muscular empathy.
Oh, muscular empathy. I love that phrase. It's not soft and passive. It is athletic.
It is. It is a heavy emotional workout.
That is the real work of relationships. It sounds so simple when we do a calm role play, but in the actual heat of the moment, it requires incredible intention.
It requires actively debugging your own internal software while the program is running.
It really does. And speaking of debugging, let's look at the underlying beliefs that drive this whole dynamic. We call this our manifestation debug mode.
Yes. Let's clear that static and tune into the magic.
Because if your foundational belief system is corrupted, every single action and output will be corrupted.
So what is the static belief here? What is the core bug in the system that causes us to fragment?
The static belief is this: if we fundamentally disagree, we cannot coexist.
Man, that feels so true for so many people right now. It feels incredibly protective. The logic is, I can't be around you because you think differently, therefore you are inherently unsafe.
It feels protective, but it actually just shrinks your world. It makes your life and your community tiny and fragile.
So how do we overwrite that bug? What is the rehearsal?
The rehearsal goes like this. I want you to visualize the difficult person in your life. Bring them into your mind's eye right now.
The person who voted the wrong way, or the parent who just refuses to understand your life choices?
See their face, and immediately observe your physical body. Is your stomach tightening? Is your jaw clenching?
That bodily reaction is the reflex. That is the bug activating in real time.
Now, I want you to physically put your hand over your chest, just press it flat against your sternum, and tell yourself, out loud if you can, I am safe in this moment.
Ground yourself in the present reality.
And here's the new code to download into your system. Repeat this to yourself. Disagreement tests capacity. It does not define worth.
Disagreement tests capacity. It does not define worth.
Embodiment is the absolute key here. You have to physically rehearse the feeling of being wide rather than being rigid and tight.
Imagine your personal energy field expanding outward to fully include the disagreement, rather than frantically putting up a brick wall to block it out.
That is so powerful because it literally changes the physics of the entire interaction.
You stop being a hard wall that the other person violently crashes into. You expand and become a spacious room that they are simply standing inside of.
It changes everything. And to help you deepen this practice throughout the week, we have 3 specific reflection prompts.
These are questions to ask yourself when you are calm, maybe when you are journaling, not in the heat of a battle.
Question 1. Where am I escalating when I actually have the power to stabilize?
You really have to identify that specific pivot point. Where is my opportunity for an agency steer?
Question 2. What current disagreement in my life feels totally existential, and is it truly a layer 3 threat?
Or is it just a layer 1 logistical disagreement, like a tax policy or a weekend schedule wearing a very scary layer 3 costume?
Right. Am I treating a paper tiger like a saber-toothed tiger?
Exactly. And question 3, what would it actually look like to separate the issue from the relationship?
Imagine physically holding the value you believe in one hand, acknowledging that it is heavy and real and important, and holding the relationship in your other hand.
You do not have to drop your value to hold the hand of the person you love.
You really don't. Which leads us perfectly into our guided visualization for today.
This is your chance to really anchor all of this theory deeply into the nervous system. We want you to leave this deep dive feeling physiologically different than when you press play.
Let's do this. I want to invite you to gently close your eyes if you are in a place where you can.
Obviously, if you are driving, please keep them open, but just soften your gaze a bit.
Imagine you are standing out in a very large, beautifully open field at dusk. The light around you is incredibly soft and forgiving. The ground is remarkably solid beneath your feet.
Really feel that solidity.
Yeah.
You are completely supported by the earth. You do not have to strain to hold yourself up.
Now imagine a wide circle of people standing around you in this field. Some of them are your closest friends. That part feels incredibly easy. Their energy is warm and inviting.
But also, standing in the circle are the people you deeply disagree with. The hard ones.
The ones who instantly spike your cortisol just by walking into a room.
Notice your immediate bodily instinct to push them out of the circle, to shrink the boundary, to point at them and say, "You do not belong here."
Instead of aggressively pushing them out, I want you to simply imagine widening the solid ground beneath all of you. Gently increase the physical space between everyone.
You aren't kicking anyone out. You are just making the room much, much bigger. You are adding square footage to your own soul.
Slowly repeat the mantra to yourself. I can hold my values without breaking the bond.
See a warm, glowing light directly in the center of the circle.
This light represents our shared fragility, our shared mortality, just like that quiet hospital room.
See the person you consider your opponent, not as a terrifying monster, but as a finite, fragile, deeply flawed human being who is also just afraid.
Someone who also just desperately wants to be safe.
The result of doing this is that the immune system of the circle completely balances out. It naturally protects everyone without furiously attacking itself.
Take a deep breath and pull that imagery in. That immense spaciousness is your true power. That is the actual vibration of stewardship.
As we gently come back from that visualization, go ahead and open your eyes, maybe wiggle your toes to get back into the room. Let's recap the journey we've been on today.
It has been quite a journey. From the stifling heat of 1787 Philadelphia to the sterile cold of a modern hospital room, and deep down into the wiring of our own nervous systems.
We clearly connected the dots between the Constitutional Convention, which taught us the profound value of containment over perfect agreement, and that hospital room, which radically taught us about the true hierarchy of what actually matters.
Because mortality always clarifies priority.
We unpacked the three crucial layers of conflict and exposed the hidden danger of projection.
And we looked closely at the immune system metaphor, understanding how social fragmentation is essentially a massive autoimmune disease where we attack our own body.
And we modeled that messy Saturday morning dialogue. The absolute key takeaway from all of this is that truly strong bonds are never built by just avoiding conflict.
No, they are built by successfully surviving it together. And surviving it requires expanding your capacity, not demanding their compliance.
Capacity, not compliance. That is the ultimate invitation of this deep dive. You are being invited to consciously strengthen and expand your own container.
So here is your practical action step for the week ahead. We want you to identify just one strained relationship in your life.
Just one. And please, do not pick the absolute hardest one yet.
No, pick a medium-level difficulty.
And the strict rule for this week is, do not try to fix it. Do not debate the issue. Do not try to convert them to your side.
Your only task is simply to practice stabilization in their presence.
Regulate your own internal state before you speak a single word externally.
Just watch carefully how the relational field responds to your new coherence. Because when you change your energetic output, The entire system is forced to adjust.
That is the grand experiment. Be the thermostat, not the thermometer.
A thermometer just passively reflects the chaotic temperature of the room. A thermostat actively sets it.
I absolutely love that. Be the thermostat.
Looking ahead, next time on our deep dive, we're going to tackle something incredibly special. It is called the myth of too late.
We are going to completely dismantle the deeply held fear that repair is impossible after years of silence and distance.
That is going to be such a beautiful session. If today was all about holding the line and expanding the space, next time is about finally crossing the bridge back.
But for today, as you go out into your week, please remember this.
Yeah.
Conflict is not a glitch in the system. It is actual evidence of life.
It is evidence that we are distinct, highly complex humans awkwardly trying to share a very small world.
Stay steady out there. Stay profoundly human. And whatever you do, stay in the circle.
Thank you so much for diving deep with us today.
We will see you next time.